Are we good? We're live. Good evening. This is the Board of Zoning Appeals, City of Dublin, Thursday, April 27, 2023. You can join the meeting in person at 5555 Perimeter Drive and also access the meeting via the live stream on the city's website. We welcome public participation, including public comments on cases. The meeting procedure for the case this evening will begin with staff presentation, followed by an opportunity for the applicant to make a presentation. The board will then ask clarifying questions, first of staff and then of the applicant. The board will hold public comments at the podium and then any that are submitted online. Following public comment, the board will deliberate on the case prior to rendering a decision. May we have roll, please?
Mr. Nye,
Here.
Mr. Murphy,
Here.
Mr. Garvin,
Here.
Mr. Kretz,
Here.
Mr. Deschler.
Here. I'm going to move in motion to adjourn for a brief executive session for the discussion of personal matters considering the appointment of various public officials. Is there a second?
I second.
Roll, please.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler,
Yes.
Mr. Nye.
Yes.
All right, we'll be back shortly. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. We had a discussion concerning for the next annual cycle for our board relative to the chair and vice chair. We have come to a decision.
At this time, I'd make a motion that Jason Deschler be named the chair for the Board of Zoning Appeals for the next term. Suggest if there's a second.
I'll second.
Roll, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. And with regard to the vice chair, I'll make a motion to have Joseph Nye serve for the next year term. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Roll, please.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler,
Yes.
Mr. Nye.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to accept the documents into the record and approve the minutes from the meetings held on October 27, 2022, December 15, 2022, and February 16, 2023?
I so move.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll, please.
Mr. Deschler,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mr. Nye,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Abstain.
Okay, we'll have our swearing in of witnesses and staff. If anyone intending to address the board on the case this evening is present, please stand, raise your right hand, and answer in the affirmative. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony to this board? Thank you. All right, for our lone case this evening, which has 4 subsections, is the Aller residence? Ayler residence at 5474 Dublin Road. This is case number 23-026V with regard to multiple non-use area variances. Specifically, this is for variances to allow a detached accessory structure to be forward to the principal structure, to have taller garage doors, to exceed the maximum square footage, and to exceed the height requirement via code. The almost 3-acre site, 2.99 to be exact, is zone restricted restricted suburban residential district and located southeast of the intersection of Tuttle Road with Dublin Road. The staff presentation for the city this evening is Zach Helmshell. Zach?
Thank you very much. Well, good evening. As stated, there are 4 variances for you tonight for a detached garage proposal. So as we get to the end, this will require 4 separate motions as well. So the site, as stated, is approximately 3 acres, just short, about 2.99 acres in size. Was previously 2 lots before it was combined back in 2021, where there is now a single-family residence. This aerial is a little outdated. It shows 2 residences. That southern one was previously there. It is currently demolished, which you will see in some of the photos here. So you can just see some of the context. The Scioto River is located to the rear of the site, which would be to the east. You see Dublin Road to the west. This is a fairly large site, zoned R1, and some of the natural features additionally, specifically on this site, you'll see a contour map shown on the screen. This tells the story of the significant amount of grade change as you move from Dublin Road to the Scioto River. So you're looking at about 50, between 50 and 60 feet as you go from Dublin Road all the way to that rear property line. So, and then there's a similar condition, which you'll see with a number of properties as you go up and down Dublin Road on this side of the river. So as stated, you can see where the previous existing home, which was shown on the southern half of the site, was provided. Currently it is demolished, so that is where the dirt area is, but you're looking from Dublin Road towards the river with both of these both of these photos. So I'll split out the variance requests based on site versus building requests. So the first request tonight is for a variance to the maximum square footage for detached accessory structures. This requirement looks at the total square footage of all accessory structures on the site. This is calculated by the size of the lot. Because it is just shy of 3 acres, they are permitted up to 1,750 square feet for all accessory structures. This garage is approximately 1,717 square feet. And there is an existing shed, which was not shown on the site plan, but was confirmed that it is out there. It's going to be that reddish, burnt orange box in the top right corner. So this is approximately 175 square foot existing shed. So that the combination of both those does exceed what is allowed here. So that's the first variance being requested. The second request is for the detached structure location. So you'll see the red dashed line, which runs along the front face of the newly created home. And you'll see where the detached structure is proposed. So it's approximately 20 feet forward of the structure, which requires the variance based on its location. The final two requests, you'll see both the east and west elevations here. The east and I believe the north elevation. So on the left, the third request is to the maximum height for detached accessory structures. So on the west side, as this is facing Dublin Road, this request does meet the requirements for the height, as it's under the 22 feet, but as it moves with the grade towards the river, it does exceed by about 2 feet 7 inches. You can see the height at the rear. So because of that rear elevation, that is where the variance is required here, as it is moving with the grade. And then the final request is for the garage door height. You can see the rightmost garage door does exceed the height of the two other on this detached structure. So it's a 10-foot tall garage door where 9 feet is permitted. Again, that request is for parking of recreational vehicles within the structure. Just to simplify between all these four requests, so shown on the screen is what staff is recommending based on each of the criteria and how we've provided our review in the staff report. Staff has felt that the criteria is not being met for the maximum square footage, as that formula is consistent across all properties in the city. So there's no special determination for this site versus other sites in the area. For the height of the accessory structure, staff has found that this meets the criteria, as this is due to the slope of the site. Although they're providing the correct height on one of the elevations, it's due to the slope that this is not able to be met. So that is where staff has found that this is a special condition and this meets. The third is the accessory structure location. Staff has found that this criteria has not been met, as the home was recently created for the current property owner. So this decision to put it forward is coming after the construction of the home, which is ultimately an action created by the applicant. And the fourth criteria, staff is recommending approval of the garage door height, as this is a large structure, this is a large home that is set back significantly from the Dublin Road. It's about 300 feet. So the size and scale of this garage door is going to be consistent and designed consistently with the rest of the structure. So with the intent of this to make it look as residential and as insequential as possible, staff has found that this criteria has been met. So with that, shown are the recommendations on the screen. I won't go back through all of them, but we are recommending approval of 2 and 4, and then disapproval of 1 and 3. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions there may be. Thanks.
Do we have any questions for staff at this time?
Can I ask, in terms of the first issue here, the maximum square footage of detached structures, would the home, would the garage without the shed fall within the conditions? Is the shed what puts it over?
Yes, so since that shed is existing, it would be considered in these calculations. So I believe the structure is under that 1,750 square feet, which is allowed.
Joel?
On number 2, the accessory structure height, with the variances required to the slope of the property. Correct me if I'm wrong, in the materials I read about the second story being a home office and something else. So why would that not qualify as like inaction of the applicant? In your view, could the applicant have their home office somewhere else, which would require it not be as tall?
Sure. So based on staff's review, we looked at this as if this site were to be flat, were to be more of a regular size, more regular slope, so flat in this instance, they're providing a structure that meets the maximum requirements, but because of the slope, that is creating a special condition that allows them, that would require them to provide less than what code allows for on all elevations. So that is where staff's analysis came into play, that we had found that the criteria was met because of that special condition.
Zach, are you aware how far the proposed accessory structure is from the home?
I can find that number for you.
Okay. You might be able to think about it when they're presenting. Do we have any other questions for staff at the time?
Not right now.
Okay, I've got one more.
Yeah, go for it.
As far as you know, Zach, if would they be able to build the garage further back, or would the slope cause issues with that?
I would look to the applicant to see whether that's feasible or not. And the distance from the proposed structure to the home would be about 30 feet.
30?
Correct.
Can you give me an idea of the conversations that you've had with the builder, architect, and/or owner relative to the, them, specifically these proposals for the variance?
In terms of why they're bringing them before you.
Right. Just, some of the background, because I would imagine that they've had some significant discussions about this.
Sure. So in the times that we had met and discussed this, a primary reason for, and their team will also talk about this as well, a primary reason is to provide some sort of buffer screen but from the house to the south of the site. So if you look at, see, there's a good way to, it's probably the most up close. So that's a primary reason for this is providing some sort of buffer between that home and then this new home. Additionally, it's relatively in the same location as the previous home that was there. So this would be, again, in a very similar location where there was already a foundation for this home. Now that home did have a detached structure forward of the home. I don't believe that had received any variance because I believe it was prior to any requirements that we would have had in code. But generally, that's the reasoning for the request and what we had discussed with them. We had recommended trying to find alternative ways to make this an attached structure. So if there's any way to put some sort of breezeway between the two. But ultimately, the applicant has decided to move with the variance for the detached structure.
Because that's kind of what I was getting at. Any kind of breezeway, it wouldn't necessarily have to be enclosed. A pathway with essentially a pergola or a trellis structure would satisfy the code, wouldn't it?
Yes, and there are specific requirements, like similar to what you had stated. We had brought that up as an idea for this, but we never dove into the feasibility of how or if that could happen.
Regarding the privacy or the desire for privacy, could that be met through another means, say a large tree or something else?
Yes, so landscaping is something that we don't regulate, but it's something that certainly could be used for privacy. And we've seen that in other cases in other areas of the city as well.
Do we have any other immediate questions for staff, or are we going to move forward? Good right now. I'm sure we're going to have more questions, Zach. All right, so who's going first for the applicant? It's Mr. Cook, is that right? Okay. Or who's going to, it doesn't matter. You gentlemen both can choose. I have that it's going to be presented by Mr. Cook, but that doesn't mean it's true.
Well, if it's okay,
This is the,
my name's Richard Taylor,
Okay.
48 South High Street in Dublin, and I'm the architect for the project.
all right, perfect.
So just a very, very brief background on this. Zach, could you put up that first drawing, this first site plan that you had that showed the old structure and the new one? And sorry, I know you put up my slide there. So my clients, Greg and Fernanda, bought this property, just the northern property, to build this house on. And during the planning of this house, the house to the south became available. So that allowed us to reshift the house farther south, but we had to negotiate with planning and zoning and the building department to combine the lots and temporarily have two houses on one lot. Because they had to stay in the existing house while they tore down the house, built this house, then move into this house and tear down the house they were just in, we couldn't move that house any further south because of where the existing house was. So that's just kind of the background on how we got here. The two planning recommendations I'd like to talk about, I'll start first with the one about the, let's see, that would be number 3, the location. So we're trying to accomplish a couple of things here. And if you look at the slide that's up there, that's obviously during construction. The green square that I've drawn on there is the approximate location that we're proposing for the house. The yellow arrow indicates, because this aerial photograph was taken while the existing house is still there, the yellow arrow, as Zach pointed out, shows the detached garage forward of the house that was on the property before. And then the blue arrow, it says impossible to see in this aerial photograph, that shows the little shed building that's there. And Kevin's going to talk about that later. The blue line that I drew is the line between the houses on either side of this. And the positioning of that green square, the detached building, is in part to preserve views of the river from the house. So if we move that forward or attach that to the side of the house over there, there are functions on that side, Fernanda's office and some other functions over there that the view of the river will be partially blocked. I think that's why the house that was there with the garage in the back and several other houses, including the one you can see at the bottom of the picture that has a detached building forward of that, were situated that way. It was to preserve a very broad view of the river in that position. On the first recommendation for the detached garage size, this is my fault. I literally, until Zach called me, did not realize that that little building was even down there. And I haven't seen it at all. That was, I mean, it's been several years since we planned this house, and I don't recall seeing that structure at all. But Kevin took some pictures of it, and he can talk about what that is and how it's being used and what it actually looks like. It's not a tall structure. It's easily missed. So the last comment I want to make is, and Zach, do you have the context photos there? In the immediate area of this house, there are 4 other homes that have detached garages or detached buildings of some kind that sit forward of that. Not that one. I had 4 aerial photographs that. Those are the ones Kevin's going to talk about. There you go. So that's 5,300. The address here is 5474, so it's very close. There's a detached garage forward of the building. The next one, that's 5336, same thing. Next one. That's one that appears in the larger photograph you saw before. That's 5430, which is 2 lots south of this. And then this one is a little bit further south, 5544. So there are those 4 plus the 2 properties they purchased. The one at the south did have that condition already existing. And again, my belief, the same as ours, the reason for doing this is to preserve as much of the view of the river from the back of the house as possible. So I think we're doing everything we can to stay within the spirit of the code. Mr. Kretz, you asked about the height of the structure and the home office above that. It's kind of the other way around. The space that's in there was created by the architecture of the building, not this building wasn't created on the architecture of the space, if you follow me. The house itself is a Tudor style with a very steeply pitched roof. And we designed the garage that same way, and that did create quite a bit of space under the roof. So taking that out wouldn't lower the roof because we'd have the same structure with just attic space above there. And as far as the height, again, if we were on a flatter part of the lot, then we would not have that, or if we filled in the back of that, we would not have that issue. Mr. Cook's going to talk a little bit about the shed in the back, because again, I've never seen it, so.
Kevin Cook, 8937 Lockerbie Court, Dublin, Corinthian Homes builder. Zach, if you could pop up that photo that I took of the existing structure that's on the back of the property. My client, Greg and Fernanda Ayler, purchased the property, and there was a house that I believe was built in the 90s that was torn down. And this structure was there previous to that and had been there for quite some time. So it's got, I don't, if historical value is the right term, but it's been, I don't know how long it's been there, but it's been there for quite some time. And so the Aylers didn't want to destroy that structure because it had some significance to that property. It had been there for quite some time. And I think there's some other pictures I've got that are a little closer view of it. It's kind of built into the hillside, as we can see here in a second. There we go. And it was a stone structure. They put a new roof on it because it had some very leaky roof, and so they just put a new standing seam roof on top of it to kind of preserve it. And so that's the whole side of the back side is a cliff, basically dropping probably 15, 20 feet from their backyard. And this structure is kind of, built into that hillside, so to speak. And that's the structure that's kind of causing us to exceed the square footage. Do we have a picture of it showing, looking back up at the backyard? Thought I had. Go back a few slides. I think I saw it before you. You can see the drop off there from the left side of the photo to the down to where the shed is.
Zach, you may have missed one. I think I thought I saw something.
Go back the other direction a little bit further, Zach. I think before that one, right there. That's standing by the front of the shed, looking back up towards the house. So there's probably a 20-foot or so drop off from their backyard down to the shed.
Do you have anything else you want to speak on relative
The only
to?
other thing I was going to mention about the reasoning also for moving the structure forward, as you can see, their front yard, from Dublin Road to their house drops, 30 feet. And so their whole front yard is a slope, and they've got 3 young kids, and there's really no place level for them to play. And so we were able to level off behind what's going to be the location for the detached structure. And he was looking for some flat area to be able to allow his kids to have some area to play. And we were able to achieve that. It's a lot better than, you don't really even gain the perspective from this picture, but you can't even kick a ball in that yard because you'll be chasing it down the hill. And by putting the detached structure forward, it allowed area behind there for the kids to play a little soccer, throw a football, a baseball, whatever, in the backyard. Which was another reasoning for wanting to position. But you can see the house that's to the south there. and it's elevated a lot higher than their house, and it just stares right down at them. And so by pulling the house or the detached structure forward, it would allow them some privacy, additional privacy. And I don't know, you plant a tree there, I mean, it's still gonna take a long time to achieve any privacy, because you're gonna need a tree that's 75 feet tall to block any views. Thank you.
This is good. I know we probably have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. I do want to try to short circuit one of these real quick. And then I'm going to bring the architect up just for one other clarifying. I think it's going to help everybody. Zach, the one motion or the one push for the variance on the height of the one garage door, I want to make sure I heard what you said. You had recommended approval because of the way that the angle is. It would have to be higher for certain vehicles to get in. Is that fair? I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. If we could pull that picture up.
Yeah. So maybe I can just walk through this at least.
Yeah.
So the intent of this, because this is a requirement in the residential design standards, the intent of this is to make sure that all garage doors are designed equally, or as close to equally as possible, but two, that it remains residential in appearance. So based on our analysis and just reviewing the criteria, but also previous cases that we've had for this, because of the size of the structure, the size of the lot, the size of the home, and how far it sits back, we felt that it was still meeting the intent as this appears residential. It's same material, same design as the other garage doors, but only a foot taller. So that's really where it comes into. We felt the intent of this requirement was being met.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's good. And I know we did have that other case, the home just right down the road from that one that had a similar request, although it was for a different reason. I think it was a lot higher. So
It was the handicap
yeah,
accessible.
but that was a few feet. This was just 1 foot. Could you come back up, sir? I want to, and this is going to help everybody here. I want to make sure I understand. So the Ehlers, they bought the home. I mean, because I want to make sure I understand the order here. They bought the one home, and then the idea was to level it, to build what we're seeing as the principal structure.
Correct.
Okay. Then at some point during when the design or the build of that home, the other lot became available.
Correct.
And at that point, they decided to purchase that lot and then move into that home while the home that they had originally wanted was being built. Okay.
Correct.
Was the intent at the time for them was just to have the one home, which is why they already have a nice garage. They didn't know that there was going to be this lot available, which fortunately for them became available. Is that a fair statement?
So the design of the detached garage did come after they purchased this property.
Okay.
And I'll add one more little bit of context. We originally designed this house to go on the river about 10 miles north. And they lived in a house up there. And then because this is very close to his office, when this became available, they jumped. So we redesigned the house to fit on this lot. And then the additional lot became available, and we were able to shift the house at least to the property line farther south.
So there was an understanding at some point during the design phase that since the new lot became available, or I guess the adjacent lot became available, you were able to alter some of the designs to allow for the forward thinking that they were gonna put something else on that other lot.
You know, I couldn't tell you what the timing of that was, but the house was designed. We changed the position of the house on the lot to go as far south as we could. And somewhere after that, the idea of doing the detached barn came up. So, I mean, this house is built, done, occupied, and these drawings are brand new. So,
Do you want to come up? I know you're making me antsy. Go ahead. You got it.
Interject, because when we bid the house, if you recall, he had a detached, it was a courtyard with the detached garage forward, because it was going to pull in, you're going to have garages this way and garages this way. And so before we even got started with construction, they bought that lot, and then you redesigned it, because then we shifted everything, because we then.
that was when detached garage was on the same lot.
Yes, but it was forward. We had a detached garage that was forward of the existing house. It was a courtyard,
On the other
and you
side.
were gonna pull in, you would come down the driveway, turn.
Right, and that would have been,
Or turned into the house.
which would have been similar to the homes that you were, the other homes that you were showing.
Correct.
All right.
And so then before we started construction, Rich redesigned it. We shifted everything over, took that detached structure and planned to put it where the existing house was, but it had to be obviously done in a two-phase process because they were in that house, couldn't tear it down until they moved into the new house.
Okay, that's fair. I just wanted to get that order down. And I do have other questions, but I'm going to defer to my esteemed board here that they can go ahead and ask questions. Who wants to go first?
I guess I will. I think I understand that the slope was not the impetus for this decision, but just to clarify, it could be moved further back structurally with no issue in terms of the slope.
Right.
Yep.
And you're meaning the actual location of the garage itself.
Correct, relative to the primary home.
Joel, questions? Dan, do you have any other ones? You can think about it. I don't want to put you on the spot. Patrick, Joe, do you have anything?
I'm ready. What was the condition and what is the use of that out structure by the 142 foot?
The out structure is going to be used as a party, party center upstairs on there, above the garage, and possibly some office space as well. I don't know, but it's going to be a recreational space, more or less.
So the roof that was put on there, as you said, to kind of protect the condition of it.
Wait, are you thinking the shed or are you
I'm
thinking
sorry,
the
I'm
garage?
referring
I
to
thought
the
you were
shed.
talking about,
No, I'm sorry.
they're putting kayaks and life jackets. They've got a dock down there for their boat. So they're just putting their water toys, vests, kayaks, stuff like that in that structure.
Okay, and then you believe it's in sound condition in terms of, it's a very
Yeah,
old building replacement.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's why they didn't want to tear it down. They said, the character of it, they liked it and said, let's just leave that there,
Is there plumbing and electric or is it just electric in there?
just electric. We trenched a line down to it just so they could have a light in there and an outlet to plug something in.
So before there wasn't anything in it, you essentially upgraded the condition of that shed.
I'm sorry.
You upgraded the condition of the shed. There wasn't
Yeah, we just
originally
put-
electric in
They
it,
put just added a new roof on it is what they did.
plus the electric.
Plus the electric, yes.
Security camera and stuff.
I do see that. Joel, what do you got? Anything?
In your view, what would be the case to not call that an accessory structure?
I'm sorry.
Is there any case to not call that an accessory structure?
I have defining this, it's another building. I mean, yes, I mean, it's an existing structure that's been there. So,
Those other pictures that we were shown with regard to the garage forward, Zach, can you pull those up? I just want to be clear here. I think some of these other ones, do they also have an attached garage too? Say what? Oh, no, the ones that you were showing is kind of similar examples of where there was a forward garage.
So it looks like one has a
I mean,
attached garage, but the rest look like they're all detached.
I mean, because, well, yeah, Zach, do we know? I mean, this one looks like it has another garage.
That's the one I'm saying. I think it does. The other ones don't appear there's any way you can pull into them. So. Maybe one more.
I don't know who wants to answer this one. Was there consideration, Zach kind of mentioned it, for any kind of path or breezeway or something to that effect from the principal structure to the proposed detached?
No, we never talked about that. I have done a number of, we'll call them lightly attached garages in Dublin. And a pergola, a pathway, at least the times I've done it, the building department doesn't accept that as a connection. It has to be roofed and has sides on it to be considered a connection by code. So in my experience, we've tried several times and a pergola never cut it, so.
I want to ask you, that's not what we were told.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Zach. I mean, what is the, what do we got, Tammy? What are you
So-
thinking?
I can pull up what the exact definition is. Tammy, do you have more of a,
It definitely requires a roof. The side walls, it used to be a requirement and they've lessened that requirement. But there definitely has to be a roof. I think even at one point it needed to be heated, it needed to be treated as internal space. And we've lessened that definition, but while you're talking, I'll look it up.
Right.
So I thought we discussed it before. We specifically had a scenario where if they just had, if it was a roofed
Right.
pathway, that it would be considered attached.
That would obviously satisfy the technical definition, but I'm not sure that would be a more attractive option looking at the entire property overall.
I'm not talking about aesthetics right now.
I know. I know. Well, I had to throw that in because that's my business.
More of looking for a loophole.
Yeah.
Is the way to put it.
While Timmy's looking that up, do we have anything else?
I have a question for Zach, and I just want to make sure that I'm probably going to ask this improperly, but I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. This started as 2 lots combined into one. If it was maintained as 2 lots, how would that change this? What if they left it as 2 lots and put the structure on one lot and the other one, but would this have all been approved?
so
Let me ask it differently. Does it impact the calculation if they left the lot line there and had 2 different lots?
So it impacts the calculation, but it also impacts what they're able to do on that southern lot. So if there is not a principal structure on an individual lot, you cannot put an accessory structure there. Yep.
The definition of principal structure? Not
Yes.
to make it, but
It would have to
a
be,
home?
it
Does
would
it
have
be
to
a
be
residential.
livable space, habitable space. Yes.
So if it was a garage with a apartment above it, would that be sufficient? Have you ever dealt with that?
I mean, that's essentially what this is.
It sounds like with a party room above it, that's, I mean, it could be a party.
I'm
room,
sure
it
there's
could have
going to
an
be
office, it could be-
plumbing and there's probably a bar or something to that effect, right? What are you
Yeah,
thinking?
there's,
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, you can come up there. Good reminder.
It's home office space above there. And the garage part, the taller part specifically is for so he can back his boat in there, and the extra height is for, I'm not a boat person, but all the stuff that's on top of the boat.
The tower.
I believe there was,
Or if that's what it's called.
bathroom as well, or maybe 2 half baths, or is that?
There's a bathroom up there, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I guess because it's being used as an office doesn't mean that it couldn't be used as a.
Well, anything else? That's what I'm saying. What is, and I know, look, I don't want you to give me the code definition, Zach. What is your understanding of the principal structure satisfaction? Because I think Joe brings up a good point here that we don't want the applicant to be penalized just because they propose to combine the lots.
So the land use would be a single-family residential structure. How it's designed isn't a consideration. So let's just say it's a garage and a house on top. As long as it has the components of a single-family residential structure, so that would be bedrooms, kitchen, restroom facilities. As long as it can function as a freestanding home, that would meet the definition.
This could have been built on the separate property if it had a kitchenette and a room that you could say has a Murphy bed in it.
I was going to say a home office would qualify as a bedroom, correct? If that was the usage.
Couldn't it be a studio? I mean, I don't think you have to have separate rooms to have a apartment, right?
Is it Mr. Taylor? Could you come back up for, I just want to make sure we're clear on this, because this could help you out. I didn't look at the specific design. Is it a full bath up there?
Yes.
Okay. So there's plumbing. Is there consideration for a modified, non-bathroom related sink or some kind of kitchenette, or something like that?
Well, again, I do a lot of work. Don't recall specifically. I don't think we have a kitchenette up there.
Okay.
And
Could
again,
be
to the-
misremembering. And the materials, was there interior pictures that I had thought featured a wet bar, but I could be mistaken.
There were floor plans that were provided in the materials. So I can't speak exactly to what's enlisted in those, but I know the second story included all of those.
I mean, we can't have two residences on one lot, so it's
Right.
not.
What we're discussing, I
Well,
guess, is if it weren't one lot, would it be acceptable?
You didn't make that change and then had the detached structure with a facility above it that could be considered a single residential home. The
No.
decision to combine them together is the
Would we
reason that
not
it's
be here?
being denied. You wouldn't have that
Right.
scenario. You would just have two single residential structures on two different properties right next to each other. Yeah.
So my client's an attorney, and I assume that he had very good reasons for combining these two lots for legal reasons, but
Well, I think what we're trying to do is solve for whatever reason, it was probably tax, but for whatever reason it was for him to combine the lots, that's not relevant. What we don't want is your client, the applicant, to be essentially penalized because of the combination of the lots, wherein if he did not combine them, we wouldn't be here.
That's more where my question was coming from is the consolidation of the lots creating the situation. Have you guys ever seen, I mean, I don't remember a lot consolidation case in whatever it's been 4 years that I've been on the board. Is there any consideration given to, other than the total, obviously total square footage of the lot size, when someone combines them together?
So when someone combines the lots, it's an administrative process. They're doing it through both the city, but also through the county.
Mhm.
What we are looking at is, I would say, similar to a lot split. When someone splits a lot, we're making sure that both lots that are created can provide the minimum requirements as provided in the code. The same would be done with the lot combination. There's not as much done with the city, as it's more of a county thing. So there's not too much that we're looking at in that moment. There's obviously the legal documents that need to be provided, such as legal description. But just in my understanding and experience, we haven't had too much involvement in those.
Because I'm more thinking, it sounds like had they built the two structures on two separate lots, it appears that it would have been, there's a very easy way to make it be approved. And then they apply to say, I'd like to consolidate these lots. We'd have the exact same structures and the exact same locations, and that wouldn't go to you because that would be an administrative process completely separate and apart from zoning. I guess, does that make any, I know I'm jumping into the discussion, but that's where I'm struggling.
Yeah, and additionally, if they didn't purchase the lot next door to build the garage, you would simply have the existing structure in the same location. The existing home would be there in terms of the
Right.
spirit of the law, or the spirit, of the ordinance, that you don't want to block maybe the views, or you don't want to create a different aesthetic towards the road, but it wouldn't
Other
do
than
that.
I think it was a few feet, it was moved just
Right.
because they were able to. It feels to me like it's an unintentional consequence of having the lots consolidated, and it would have been approved had they'd been consolidated afterwards, or been requested separately as two different structures, residences, however you want to put it. That's where I'm struggling.
I want to make sure here, just so if we're going to try to refocus on this, I don't normally do this, but I want to make sure we try to shortcut this as fast as possible. I'm okay, and I want you to let me know if you disagree, so we can jump to what we have to jump to. I'm okay with the additional height of the one garage door, and I'm okay with the height of the structure. So 2 and 4, where staff has already recommended approval. I'm also supportive. Does anybody disagree? And please feel free to let me know.
I'm in support of those as well.
I've got two questions.
No, go for it.
So Zach, regarding criteria 2, so the combining the lots.
Wait, hold on. I want to make sure. Is this variance 2 or criteria 2 for which variance?
Criteria 2 for all 4 variances.
Okay.
Would you, in your view, is combining the lots an action of the applicant?
I would say yes, that is an action created by the applicant.
So then my second question, if the applicant tabled it, separated the lots, could they reapply or revise their application? Getting at what we've been discussing here.
I don't think that's going to get them in the positive direction because the smaller the lot, the smaller the footprint of the building is. So let me be clear. Are you asking if they did a lot split and split the lots, let's just say exactly how they were before? Are you asking, does that help them?
My understanding from the discussion here was that if they had never combined the lots, you could rationalize that could have operated as a separate independent house. And there would be no issue. It wouldn't be considered the attached
And we
structure.
wouldn't have. Exactly.
So just for me, in my view, for all 4 variances, criteria 2, they did combine the lots. That is an action of the applicant. But I could be supportive if they separated the lots and came back. I would agree that it wouldn't be an attached structure.
So you pose a great question. And I think I don't know if that's something that we're comfortable answering at this time. Ultimately, what you could have then is I'm speaking hypothetically, if this were to be built on its own lot and considered a single family dwelling, if it fit under that criteria, the combination of lots creates could be considered as 2 single family lots on a single lot, which is a non-conforming item in that zoning district.
But Zach, just real quick, I think the difference is though, because I understand that's on the same lot, but I think the idea, at least what I'm saying and maybe not articulating, is if they were on separate lots. Because I understand you're saying it's 2 single family dwellings on one lot. I agree with you completely. And I probably maybe said it wrong, is if they were on separate lots though.
Sure. Yeah, if a structure meets what a single family dwelling calls for, which I believe, I pulled it up, single family dwelling is a detached or attached building arranged or designed to be occupied by one family, the structure having only one principal dwelling unit. So if something fits within that designation, also it would have to meet, if it's single family home, it also needs to meet the single family residential development standards. So there are additional requirements that would be applied that wouldn't be applied to a garage. So hypothetically, if it fit under those, we would be able to look at it as a single family dwelling.
Has the building department approved the structure and the plans itself, but the only thing holding it up is these variances?
The detached structure?
Yes.
They have not approved it. They do not approve plans until they have gone through BZA if it's needed.
Didn't we deal with this before about the chicken and the egg kind of situation with that?
I want to go back though to make sure. Joel, tell me where you're at here on the 2 specifically that the city has recommended.
Where I'm at is no on all 4 because criteria 2, the variance is not necessitated because of any action or inaction of the applicant.
Yeah, but I don't know if that has anything to do with, that has to do with the spacing. It doesn't have to do with the height of the garage door, or the forward nature of the combining only has to do with the size, the number 1. the variance one. I'm pretty sure. Isn't that right? Joe, ma'am, I'm thinking that correctly. The combining of the lot only matters for the square footage, the variance related to the square footage of the principal structure with the accessory structures.
That should be the location relative to the primary home as well.
Because there wouldn't be a primary home. If they were on separate lots, there would only be one primary home on each lot as well. So the relative nature to the primary home wouldn't exist because they would both be a primary home under that scenario.
Right. It wouldn't be 20 feet forward of a primary home. It would just be another primary
It would
home.
be the primary home on that lot.
So I do think, I mean, I would agree that that's relevant.
To the location.
Correct.
So that would be the two that the staff has already recommended disapproval on.
I think it'd be the location, the total square footage. You're right. So 1 and 3 is what I
Right.
think that's relevant.
So I'm only talking,
You're right.
I just want to make sure, I'm only talking about 2 and 4.
It sounds like Joel's a no on 2 and 4.
Well, so I'm open-minded here, so.
So this is good. No, this
on
is what it's for.
on number 2, accessory structure height. If they hadn't combined the properties, wouldn't this not apply because it wouldn't be a detached structure? So the height requirement on the detached structure wouldn't apply.
I think you
that's
make
true,
a
'cause it
good
wouldn't be
point.
attached structure, right?
We
they-
brought up the,
It wouldn't be the.
it wouldn't be a structure at all if they tore it down. I think when they purchased the other lot, tore it down at that point. I mean, I do agree with your point that it wouldn't be necessarily a detached structure, but they're talking about rebuilding, right? So there's nothing there now. So I guess by that point, is that their action at that point that creates the necessity, or is that the, tearing down an existing home?
I guess for me, it's an action regardless of whether they had the benefit of hindsight.
And
Zach,
maybe if I can be clear really quickly, just on how we have interpreted that action and action by the applicant. Typically, it's when an applicant has been found that they have made an action, it is because they have created a situation that could have been avoided had they not done that. So in this case, when we're looking at the height of this accessory structure, as we're looking at today as an accessory structure, they are permitted to be 22 feet regardless where they're located on site because of the size of this lot. Dwelling structures are allowed to be higher, but this is not considered a dwelling structure. So regardless of the lot split, the height for a detached structure would be the same.
But if they weren't split, it wouldn't be a detached structure. It would be a primary residence and it would be under the, right? I mean, I think that's the struggle.
Sure.
And to
And I'm
clarify-
speaking under currently how it is written and how it came into tonight.
If it was I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, private residence, would it have met the garage, for number 4, garage door height, the other one, where I'm sitting on no and staff's recommending approval, if it was a private residence, would it have met the height requirement?
So all garage doors, and you're asking for number 4 specifically, the garage door height?
Yes.
Yeah, so all garage doors are required to be 9 feet regardless of it being attached or detached. So that is a citywide policy there.
Was one of your reasons for the RV, slot specifically having a higher garage because of the scale of the building, or did I misunderstand that?
So the intent behind that requirement is that it maintains a residential scale for the development, as this is part of that residential development standards.
Zach, the idea is you
Yes.
don't want to have one that's you can bring a semi truck and you don't want to have the 20-foot garages that semis are pulling into. Right?
Correct.
If we consider that a primary home, just kind of further going down the split lot exercise, if that was a primary home, then would suddenly that garage height not be appropriate for the size of the home, in your opinion?
I prefer not to speak to that because that's not what's before us. But maybe, excuse me, maybe an example, a similar example would be the slope of roof heights. those are cases that we've seen before. Some of these requirements are put in place to establish a character in Dublin, like a minimum character. So we've seen these design requirements altered, but it's in exchange for a higher quality design that it's to minimize lower standards than what Dublin is expecting, and that's where those requirements come into play.
You're saying an increased standard isn't the problem. It's to make sure there's not a decreased standard.
Correct.
So I think I know where I do know where I stand on this. Is it all right if I share that? Okay. So for me, if the properties were separated, again, the first three variances, I think those are very applicable to what if they were separated, because it would be viewed as a private home. For me, the fourth variance on garage door height, whether it's a private home or not, they would still have to ask the variance. That said, I'm on board with that variance. And so for me, if they tabled it and separated the properties, then I would be supportive of all four of these. Now, what I don't know is, I don't want to be too creative here, but what I don't know is, could they separate it, revise their application or reapply, get approval, and then combine the properties?
Well, that's one of the things that I was bringing up. I don't know the answer. And Jason, tell me if.
But that
maybe I'm
part's not
aware of
relevant,
this.
I guess,
Have
from my
we-
opinion.
Have we ever had an application where the applicant didn't show up themselves? Because I don't know if the people that are here have the ability to withdraw their application for them or table it.
I mean, it's the same as council. And I think they can act on their behalf. There's representation. I'm not concerned about.
I just meant, do they feel comfortable doing something like that? It's more of a, if that comes to be an option.
Can I ask for a point of clarification? Are you actually asking them to consider separating the lots back out?
He is.
Okay,
I'm not asking
He's telling.
them to I'm not
Okay.
asking or telling, I'm asking if they did that,
okay.
then that's where I would stand, but that's their decision.
But I think in summary, you're a no on the first three and a yes on the fourth. Is that fair?
Yes, on the first three. Let me catch my breath here.
You know, I think about some of this stuff where we're
Yes, that's where I stand.
just thinking holistically, like we're penalizing the applicant here. In my opinion, unnecessarily. The move to apply to combine lots is not something easy. And then to have that redone, I can't even imagine what the argument would be about why, and then have them go back and do it just to try to get around. I don't know if that's the intent of what, the code here
Well,
is.
I believe they would have to get approval from the county for both the
Yeah.
consolidation and then the split, or the vice versa, which would, I don't know if you guys have dealt with county commissioners and such. They're not exactly the most expeditious in their processes.
For me,
So I guess maybe a point of clarification for me, are we setting up a proposal for them to split this lot and then recombine the lot? Or are we saying, ostensibly speaking, if they had done this, then this would be the outcome that we should be judging?
I think we get to make that decision. It's up to us to decide how you want to evaluate it. Zach, real quick, Patrick, I don't mean to cut you off. What was the case where they put that indoor volleyball court up? How much did that exceed over?
Yeah, I believe it was approximately double what that requirement was, and that was all within one structure. There were no other structures on the site.
Yeah, I know that there's a small shed near the river. But I know what the thing is, there wasn't a prior detached structure on that lot. It was bigger. I understand that. But the variance that was granted was significant over how many feet is this over?
Just shy of 150.
What was that one over? No, I think it was the square footage. I think it was like,
Number one,
I
it's
think it
square
was like
footage.
1,000 over.
I can pull it up really quick and find that for you.
What you're saying is, should they be penalized? Should we treat someone different as two structures as opposed to one larger structure?
Was that in Dublin?
Yeah.
Well, I want to make a comment on something that Patrick said, and I want to just clarify because you kind of asked a question. Are we saying one or the other? I was more just posing that as kind of thought provoking because it kind of going with what Jason said. The thing I will be honest in response to him is I still struggle with how that isn't an applicant action. That's the struggle that I have is I'm not telling them to go separate them, combine them together, re-separate them. I don't know what that process would be, but I don't know how the decision to do so without thinking about this gives them a pass that others wouldn't get, because how does every other applicant come in here and say, well, I didn't know that was going to happen and be a lot of work to fix that, so I should get a free pass because I didn't do it. I struggle between those two things.
Yeah, I was just kind of trying to get clarification on how deep into this hypothetical we'd be going, just to kind of map out like a timetable of things and kind of find a justification for why we shouldn't just take the plot of land as it is. I mean, obviously, ostensibly speaking, that it's. I mean, it is what it is. And had that process been followed to its conclusion, then obviously we'd be in a different place right now. But we're not in that place right now. So, yeah, it's just a.
So where do you stand with the floor right now?
Well, I would take it as it is, as it stands. I wouldn't necessarily sort of play out this guessing game of how things would be combined had things gone a little bit differently. I do have a question about the requirements for a primary structure. Would a garage have to be included, or some kind of like parking structure on? Okay.
I don't believe a garage would be required, but there needs to be some sort of parking on site.
Okay. So I was just curious if you did split the lots, would there be a garage on one and no parking structure on the other, or how would that play out?
There's simply,
You want to discuss the hypothetical splitting the lots? Just wanted to clarify, because your statement was we don't want to discuss this, and then your question's about whether we do. So I would like to know the same thing. Do we think we should discuss it or not? I think Patrick has a fair question. Think we need to go down this road?
I think if it was me and I was the applicant, I would table it and confer with my client, who it sounds like is an attorney, and explore if they'd even be open to that, to avoid not being able to apply for another year. For me, it was an action. My desire is not to penalize. I could see how this would be frustrating to get no's on this for sure. But for me, this is what the code is and what the criteria are. They did do the action, and the benefit of hindsight isn't relevant to it.
Hey, Zach, real quick, how many homes fall on like this home in the outskirts of Dublin, not within a planned unit development or under a homeowners association? Is it less than 2%? Something like that?
Are you asking how many of these homes are under some sort of HOA or?
Right. I know this home falls directly under the code, whereas a lot of homes not only fall under the code, but there's also, some additional floors that are set by the HOA drawings, the architect's drawings relative to that planned unit development.
Along Dublin Road, most of these sites on the riverside, they don't fall under that. I don't believe there may be one or two neighborhoods to the south, Locust Hill, and there's one just south of that. I believe they have some sort of association.
Citywide, most residential lots are platted,
Yep.
is the answer to your question.
The one thing here, this is interesting, by the way. I was pulling up the code relative to the three requirements, and we've been talking a lot about the the variance is not necessitated, but because of any action or inaction of the applicant. With regard to the special conditions, there's mentioning of that there's a special condition by reason or use or development, reason of the use or development of the property immediately adjoining the property in question. So,
Could you say that last part again?
I say what?
Could you say that last part again?
So within the code, there's actually it gives additional descriptions about some of these elements. And with regard to number one, which is we usually qualified as a special condition, one of the bases of a special condition is by reason of the use or development of the property immediately adjoining the property in question. So I don't think there's an issue with the special condition section on these. Is there, Zach, have you I can't, let me pull it up here. Let me make sure. Let me pull up the,
Can you pull up the screen that has, you're talking about the screen that has the criteria?
yeah, let me look here. So he's saying, yeah, 1 second. Let us try to navigate this one issue and then don't forget it. Hopefully your client's watching. Okay, so Zach, I want to make sure here on, are you finding on any of these that the special condition hasn't been met? I think it looks like you're saying they've all been met, right?
That is correct.
So tell me how then that correlates with the code section I just read, because this directly involves the applicant's action on the development of the property. So how are we as the board supposed to differentiate those two when they're so closely aligned in this respect?
So I can speak to our analysis of this and just looking at mostly the natural features of the site. Understanding that there are a number of properties on this side of the street that have similar conditions. This is a condition that is not consistent in many other areas of the city. That's ultimately where our decision, or where our recommendation came for the special conditions about it's a larger than average lot. There's significant slope that minimizes where you can put structures. There's mature vegetation in some areas of the site. You saw some of the photos where there's some significant change, especially towards the rear of the property. So taking into consideration those items, that is where the special conditions staff felt were met. That's how we had viewed them. So I can't speak towards anything really but that.
Okay, let's hear what you got.
I appreciate the hypothetical discussion on the lot split, but the conditions of combining the lot and the positioning of the houses would make that impossible at this point. Secondly, my client is willing to demolish the shed, the little kayak shed, to get us under the requirement. And third is where I've been conferring with the contractor, we can raise the grade at the back of the property to eliminate the height issue.
I'd like to kind of make a point on the client applicant action and inaction. I think that's specifically always a challenge. I think you make a great point. And that is an action to split the lots. What is the limit of an action? Would buying a property that would require a variance be enough to be an action and prevent anyone else from having any variance ever? Or is there some limit we can put on, what constitutes action?
When we kind of looked at it overlapping with, pre-existing conditions, we had a whole subdivision where we said, well, you bought the house and was already there. So That's not your fault because it wasn't your action. You didn't put it there. But you're right. They bought the house when it was there. So it feels like it's a, you know, infinity argument that just keeps going around in circles. I mean, I guess at this point, and Jason, I would defer to you as our current and newly elected chair, but I feel like we should try to move this towards
Yeah.
some sort of conclusion.
I'm gonna tell you this, and we can kind of go through. I want to make sure I just have my notes, and this is good to hear. First, I want to talk. This is just me, with no concession. I want you to consider that right now, because that's where I am. No concession. I know we heard the applicant indicate that he's willing to concede on some areas. Joel, you've indicated that 1, 2, and 3 are no, and 4 is a yes. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. Dan, where are you at?
So I'm looking for, so my thought, I agree with the staff approval recommendation for motion 2 and 4. Motion 3, you know, I think that there are special conditions there. I think that, you know, the existence of the prior home in roughly the same location does make a difference. It's an issue that, and the grade is an issue that not necessarily other homes would face, the views of the river as well. So really the only one I had kind of struggled with was motion 1, because I think that, you know, I liked the idea that maybe as a historical structure would have value. I think you kind of move against that argument when, you know, with the new roof. And I mean, personally, if it does have historical value and you know, the style of it is in keeping with Dublin, I'd hate to see it go. But that's the issue I struggle with. Otherwise, I would be inclined to approve at least the other 3 and potentially that one as well.
All right. So as of now, you're a no on 1 and yes on the others. Correct.
Yeah, as of
Right.
now.
Okay. Patrick, where are you at on 1, 2, 3, and 4 here?
I mean, I'm struggling in a very similar fashion here. I don't really see there being much of a given the sloping and the topography of the property, the permitted distance element. I don't really take issue with allowing saying that allowing a variance for that. But yeah, I'm sort of the same sort of issues with the first one. Essentially, yeah. And I wouldn't necessarily want them to destroy any structures that are on the property. But I mean, we're talking about what is it, 175 square feet? You said
142.
That was the overage.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
What's the square footage of the shed thing?
That shed, per the auditor's website, is about 175 square
Okay.
feet.
So it would clear it, but it's also a unique structure that sits well below the grade. I mean,
But you're still
as we
no, are you
discuss
changing your
it.
mind? You're
Yeah,
talking
I
about
am. I
it? So
mean,
you
as we
think it's okay
discuss it, I
then?
think that I would approve
Okay.
1 as well. As
So
special
you're
condition.
okay on all. Patrick, you're a no on 1 and yes on the others?
Yeah, as it stands, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Joe, where are we at here?
I think I'm a yes on all 4, to be honest with you. And my yes, and I want to explain it, is based on precedent. Is the other approvals that we've given in the past. I mean, 2 and 4 to me, I agree with the staff. I feel like those are easy yeses for me. The 1, I agree with the discussion about. I mean, I guess I don't know how you get around the fact that they created it. I hate, kind of like Dan said about the structure. I mean, I hate to see a historical structure so far away from the property. You can hardly see it. It's built into the, you know, is it a structure? I mean, I guess technically it is. Can we find another definition of it? I don't know how we do that. So I'm leaning towards yes, but I struggle with 1 and 3, but I tend to agree with Patrick. I think the topography of the land pushes me over to a yes for sure on 3, but 1, I'm on the fence. So I'm a slightly leaning yes on 1. How about that? But
How for my notes here? How am I?
60% yes on 1 and a yes on the other 3.
Okay.
A lot of motions.
It's a lot. Look, I think I'm thinking of the intent here holistically. It's a beautification of that area. I know the code's written as it is, but I'm not seeing something frankly significantly egregious with what's being proposed here. Past precedent, I think, on number one, I don't know how we say I don't know how we can say no. I don't. It's
That's my struggle.
It's a-
I just
it's
want
a
to be vocal
difficult
for it.
right now I'm in favor of granting the variance for all four of them.
Can I ask
So-
a favor of Zach? Can you put because it seems like number one's our biggest contention. Can you put the criteria list back up for one again, please? So I guess, Jason, if you don't mind, can I ask a question just so we can try to move forward
Are
on
you
that
asking
one?
me a question
Well,
or?
of all of us.
Okay.
You're included in all of us, but does anybody have an issue with the 2 of 4 being met on number one? I mean, because I definitely don't have an issue with that. So it seems like if the answer is no, we don't have an issue with it, the question then becomes for the no's is what's the issue? Is it 2 and 3 above? And if so, how can we reach a yes on 3 but not get there on 1? So I don't mean to overstep, Jason, but that's kind of where I'm at.
When you say 1, you're talking, just to be clear, the maximum square footage.
I apologize. So if we're a yes on motion 3, meaning we would, if we were to agree that all 3 of the first criteria that are required to all be met are met for motion 3, what distinguishes motion 1 that puts it in a no versus motion 3? If that's, I tried to
I
articulate
see.
better.
I'm going to defer to the rest of the members to discuss it because for me, the
Joel's
action,
already said
action
no,
is
right?
after.
He's good. So this is really, right.
I think the special condition for and again, I
Well,
said that I would
I think
approve.
he's changed. It's
all-
really, this is,
Yeah.
Patrick, I mean, Patrick, what are your thoughts then? To Joe's question about how, based on the city's analysis, how can there be a yes on 3 and then a no on 1?
I wasn't specifically singling you
But
out.
he
Everyone, I
he
definitely
basically did.
apologize.
I think I honestly I think we're okay though here. If you're having Joe, if you're going to go for 1,
Yes.
I think you're going to get 3 out of 5 you need on 1, and then the other ones you're going to get 5 on the last, and then 4v1 on the second and third variant. So if you're going to stick to your yes on 1.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear Patrick's point of view. That's why, just to make sure that that there wasn't a reason I shouldn't be a yes on 1. I just wanted to clarify because I felt stronger about 3 as well, but I wanted to kind of hear your thought on that.
I don't want to talk you out of it.
I don't want to talk about it.
But, I mean, I think the most compelling part about number 3 was essentially the slope that the property's on. That's kind of makes it a little more understandable that you might have to separate the properties, put the garage forward, farther away from the primary structure. Whereas part 1's really just like it comes down to a set of numbers and measurements. Unfortunately, like 175 square feet in violation of that code section. I am sympathetic to the other decisions that have been made by this board regarding larger area square footage masses on properties. But unfortunately, I wasn't present for a lot of those, and it might be unique to those specific circumstances.
I have one final comment from myself regarding back to Mr. Garvin's earlier question around, like, well, where do we stop? Back to the second criteria around the action, like how do we define action? For me, it's at least where actions after the purchase of the property at minimum. And for me, they purchased the property, then combined them. I think that's that's different than if they had purchased a property and learned something later or something had already happened before they owned it. So I just want, for this case and other cases, that's how I think about it.
If there's not any more discussion, Mr. Chair, I would like to start by making a motion.
Yeah, Joel, you make a good point. I do want to say one more thing. I appreciate, your comments and evaluation and analysis. It's not that I'm not necessarily in agreement with where you're coming from. It's that I think, and that's why I asked the questions about order and intent of the applicant through the process. I think there was just so many changing factors, and they were, trying to do the best thing they could possible. And the lots, you have to understand something too. I think that with the way that this is being proposed, and the lots that would actually fall within these type of categories are very small. And I think these, type of beautification efforts are appropriate for the city, especially along that Dublin Road corridor. Not to say that's my only aesthetic basis, or that's the basis that I'm proving this. I think I'm just trying to think holistically about when the code was drafted and what the intent was behind it. And so, with that said, I am supportive of these as they are currently proposed. So
May move forward then.
yeah, it's 4 separate motions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Go for it.
I would move to approve a non-use variance to the zoning code, section 153.074B2E, to permit a detached structure that exceeds the maximum square footage by plus or minus 142 feet.
Second.
Roll, please.
Mr. Kretz,
No.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
No.
I'm sorry,
No.
Mr. Nye,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler.
Yes.
May I keep going?
Keep going down the list.
Okay. Just thought I didn't want to interrupt people, but I would move to approve a non-use variance to zoning code section 153.074B2E to permit a detached structure to exceed the maximum height by plus or minus 2 feet 7 inches.
Second.
Mr. Deschler,
Yes.
Mr. Nye,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
No.
Would make a motion to approve non-use area variance to zoning code section 153.074B6A to permit a detached structure forward of the principal structure by plus or minus 20 feet.
Second.
Mr. Nye,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz,
No.
Mr. Garvin.
Yes.
And finally, I would make a motion to approve non-use variance to zoning code section 153.190E1F3D to permit a garage door located on the detached garage at a height of 10 feet.
Second.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mr. Deschler,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Nye.
Yes.
Thank you. Did we have any public comment, by the way? I forgot to ask.
This is not about the case.
Nope. We don't.
It's about you guys. I've done these for 35 years of my career all over the country. I was on the ARB for 5 years. I was on P&Z here in Dublin for 8 years. I mean this. This is the best deliberation I've ever heard from a body like this, ever. So thank you all very much. Besides the fact that we got what we wanted, it was just a fantastic conversation.
Thank you.
That's fair. Thank you for your commentary. I appreciate it. And the presentation. It was helpful for our deliberation. Thank you. Do we have any communications?
Yes. We have a joint work session scheduled for May 10th. It should already be on your calendars. It was something that staff had approved as part of our yearly dates. And I just wanted to see if attendance is expected from everyone. And I'm saying this for our abilities to arrange for dinner to be provided.
Do you know the expected duration of this?
It'll be 2 hours.
And starts at 6:30? Oh, at 6?
Mhm.
Okay.
What is it, 10th, a Wednesday?
I can tell you, I just put it up in seconds. It's a Wednesday.
Yep.
From 6 to 8, I think, what we got the notice.
And if you need to check calendars, please do. Again, we're just doing a head count for
Oh, yeah,
menus.
I'm gonna have to check. I have a conflict already that I may have to get out of, but I'll have to see if I can. So,
Looks probable for me.
Maybe I need to circle back.
that's a good corporate lingo.
I'll send you an email.
Okay. Anything else besides that, Tammy?
No, I just also wanted to announce that we're knee-deep in a community plan update, and hopefully there are meetings, or you've been made aware of meetings that we're having. So we just had a kickoff meeting last week. And so we look forward to having your feedback in multiple venues for the community plan update. So stay tuned.
I did have one thing.
Yes.
So you may have noticed in the staff report that the person that had done the report, her name is Elizabeth Fields. So we are working with a consultant now moving forward with BZA. She did not present tonight. We wanted to kind of ease her in a little bit, but it is likely at the next meeting, which we should have one next month. She will be here. She'll do the report and presentation for you all. One of us at minimum will still be in attendance, but just wanted to give you a heads up so you're not surprised when you don't hear one of us behind the mic. So if you have any questions about her, feel free to reach out. But we've worked with her on a number of projects between Planning and Zoning Commission. I think she's helped us with ARB as well. So she's very experienced in public sector and is doing BZA and a lot of other jurisdictions as well. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that before upcoming meeting.
She actually is an associate, if you remember Greg Dale, who's come before the board several times for educational purposes. She's his associate. So we do a lot of work with them.
Okay. You're saying that I think the next meeting's May 25. Is that right? Is that where you said we're going to have some applications?
Yes, we do have at least one case in currently, potentially 2 or 3.
Okay, good. Anything else? All right, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.